My breaking point. Hey guys, my name is Hamza, and I am a real estate developer. I develop flex space in today's world. Developed quite a bit of it on my journey currently to build $1 billion portfolio in flex space all over the country. But before I did flex space, I actually reached my breaking point when I was in multifamily. And this is a video that my team wanted me to make for a very long time, my team here in the office. And I resisted the urge to make this video. But today I'm gonna make this video. It's been a long time since I've talked to you guys on camera, and it's been a long time since I've done any type of long form content. But I reached my breaking point in 2019, right before COVID. Luckily, I was happy, and at that time I didn't know that it was really my breaking point. But let me walk you through exactly how that happened and the stories behind what caused me to break down at that time. So for those of you who may not know, which is a lot of you I'm guessing, my name is Hamza Ali. I'm an immigrant. I came to the United States December of 2013, founded my company. At the time we were called Yassons Inc. And I thought that name was pretty cool, but then we ended up changing the name later. Anyways, founded a company, created a real estate fund where I primarily focused on multifamily. And initially, when I started the fund, I started with a 24-unit apartment complex, very small. So this was a very, very small fund at the time. Total acquisition price, not equity. This included debt, meaning the total asset, the whole multifamily was for $850,000 rather. I'm used to saying million so much that it keeps coming out of my mouth, but it was $850,000, and that is really how I started my journey. I started building. I started buying more apartment communities after that, but that apartment community was actually sold to me by a Lebanese broker, which is, when I first came to this country, I'm Middle Eastern. I found somebody who was Middle Eastern who was a broker. So we kind of, I related with him, he related with me. We understood each other's cultures. And so I ended up doing business with him. But at the time, what I didn't realize is that this $850,000 24-unit apartment community was in fact in the middle of the ghetto. Lots of rough stuff happening. So we had situations, I remember, in that 24-unit apartment community that kept me more busy at that time than some of our 400 or 500 door units kept me during their ownership. But I'm just going to tell you things that really affected me in the beginning of my journey. So I didn't really stop acquiring apartments, but a lot of things impacted me, and those things together combined later on in life in 2019 caused me to sell all of my multifamily properties and not hold on to them. So quick story, ended up buying this 24-unit apartment community. Turned out it was in the middle of the ghetto, really tough location. I had to deal with strippers, doing things in the apartment complex, and I had families in there. I had two sisters, and once I remember I had to get into the apartment complex, and I saw both the sisters fighting, and I was like, why are you guys fighting? What happened? And it turns out that one of their boyfriends snuck into the other one's apartment, and they had some type of affair going. It was just extremely, extremely disturbing things that I was looking at. And me, as an immigrant coming from the outside, I mean, of course, I've seen disturbing things in my own right, but nothing to this level, or nothing had prepared me to walk into that walk of life that I decided to. But you know what? The way I look at it, it was a learning. I learned a lot from that first apartment community. That first apartment community helped me grow my portfolio to over 1,400 doors. And eventually I had property managers who were dealing with these issues, which is also, by the way, a lot of people say that once you grow to a certain level, you hire property managers. You don't really need to look into these type of situations anymore, these types of scenarios anymore. That is just not the case. It's extremely untrue. Even though you have property managers and you may have even a regional manager over them, as a fund operator, these are things that you have to look into in the best interest of everybody who's investing in your fund. So the first thing I want to talk about, of course, is the properties. Before I get into the fund and dealing with the investor sides and talking about all of that, I want to actually talk about things that happened to me during my ownership of these multifamily deals that really impacted me deeply. So the first thing that probably I haven't even said this to my team yet, is that I remember on one day, okay, I had just moved We had just bought this apartment community, and one of my tenants actually called me, and he said, "Hey," and they were used to rough ownership prior to me taking over the apartment complex. Over time, my relationship with the tenants became very solid. But just because they were used to dealing with maybe rougher landlords than me, the tenant called me up and said, "Hey, my AC is busted. You need to come fix it right now." And of course, at that time, I didn't understand what the land of the law was, and I didn't understand how things, what the timelines are. So I actually, being naive at the time, I guess, ended up buying a window unit, like a window AC unit, to give him just so that he could have something, because I want to say it was like a Saturday or it was a Sunday, or I don't remember what day it was, but I remember I couldn't get in touch with any of the AC companies to come out and take a look at the air conditioning, or it was very difficult for me at the time to do that. So I ended up buying him a window unit. I remember driving to Home Depot, spend a couple $100, bought this unit, actually delivered it to him and said, "Hey man, look, I'm trying to get in touch with the AC companies. I'm not able to get in touch with anyone, but here's a brand new AC unit. All you need to do is install it, and and you'll be good at least until I can get somebody to come and take a look at what is going on." And he actually looked at me and said, "No, you're going to install it." Like literally, like I was going to install his air conditioner. And like I said, I had come from a different country. I was not used to that type of treatment. I mean, we have rough people all over the world, and I understand that, but I was just not used to somebody coming and telling their landlord, "Hey, you need to install the air conditioner." Now, I understand he was probably upset, and believe it or not, I ended up fixing the air conditioner the very next day for him because I was able to locate somebody to do that. But until then, I remember that I actually had to walk in to his apartment, which was filthy, by the way, and open the window and install that AC and make sure the power was connected, make sure it was running cold. And the AC, I remember so clearly, the AC came with this little extension. It was like a jacket. And basically what it did is when you open the window and you install the air conditioner is small, so there's a little bit of gap on your window, and you guys might know this or might not. I mean, just depends on what walks of life you've come from or have come from. So there was this little gap in the window, and what you did is you installed that jacket, and it would close that gap so the AC would cool. And that was something I think when I started off my journey really impacted me. Like, you would have tenants literally tell you to come right now, fix their stuff, and you really had no other option, right? And because this was my first apartment community, this was kind of my learning project. And on top of all of that, I had raised money from investors to buy it. So I hadn't used all of my money. I didn't have actually all the money to buy this apartment complex. And and so that was something I think that really taught me very important life lessons. Of course, as we grew and as I got more property managers, these kind of things fell onto my managers. I didn't have to deal with tenants directly, but even then, at that point, dealing with property managers is a very difficult job, and that's something that I want to talk about. A lot of people talk about. Yeah. By the way, back to old story. I sold that apartment community, and I think we ended up making like 100% on it after I fixed it, and so we bought it for like 800. We put 300 or 400 down. I can't remember. And then we put another 150 into it, and then we ended up selling it for like 1.3 million after fees. So everybody who invested in that apartment community did end up making money. But from that apartment community, all the lessons that I had learned, I then started buying bigger and bigger apartment community. My next apartment community was 66 doors. And then the following few apartment communities after that were, I don't know how, but all 66 doors. I remember we had Braeswood Plaza Apartments, Westwood 2 Apartments, Redstone Apartments here in Houston, Texas. And then we had one more. I can't quite remember the name, but it was also 66 units. Out of all the numbers possible, for whatever reason, every apartment complex I was buying was 66 units. Anyway, ended up buying a ton of apartments after that were in the like 60 to 100 door range. And then, of course, went to the 200, 300, 400. But, when you get to that level, it's a little bit of a different game. So I'm still going to tell you guys on what happened in my other few apartment complexes. Another life lesson that I learned is that tenants can be extremely aggressive against each other. We've had tenants who, husband, wife, child, where we had issues where the husband locked up the child at very very difficult circumstances, and the wife was away at work, and we had to call the SWAT team to kind of get that fixed. They ended up causing a lot of damage at one of my apartment communities. And then as we started acquiring more and more apartment communities over time, what I realized is that every week or every couple of weeks, we would have the news crew at one of our apartment complexes, right? At some point, we had probably 20 apartment complexes all over Houston. And what we were noticing is that consistently we have the news crew on the apartment complex, and they're covering a story of either violence or like assault or like, just things that you really don't want to deal with as a landlord. And it's part of the territory. I understand it's part of doing business. It's the cost of doing business in that field, I guess. But it just was something that continued to affect me and impact me deeply. So when I found a buyer in 2019 and they came in, I remember they flew in from New York, and they were actually part of a company that was going public, which then decided not to go public. But either way, point being, they came in and they offered me money for so we had sold quite a bit before then, and at that point I had decided, you know what, I don't even want to deal with apartments anymore. I'm just looking for one buyer. I would be lucky if I found a buyer that paid me a little over what market value is, and I know that these portfolios sell for that much. So I ended up selling all my apartment communities, and finally, during the sale, like literally during the sale process, we had an issue where one of our property managers unfortunately passed away due to circumstances not related to the apartment, but just due to that lifestyle that they lived, and these are things that a lot of people don't talk about. A lot of people will tell you, oh yeah, invest in apartments, it's easy money. I wish I had done more flex space earlier on in my life to really understand how easy money is to make in real estate, regardless of which vertical you go into. Unfortunately, I stayed in the apartment game for quite a while, and I really regret it. Even looking back today, I don't think I would ever want to do residential or multifamily real estate, just because the money is only good because the debt structure is good. Multifamily has significant debt benefits, meaning lenders used to be, not right now because the market conditions are a little volatile, but back then lenders were just throwing money at multifamilies, and so multifamily became super aggressive and started growing at massive capacities, just because every lender had a huge massive budget towards multifamily. And understandably so. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had easy debt structures, and everybody else was kind of a layer two on top of that. So it was something that ended up as far as debt is concerned, ended up working out in everybody's favor. But in my case, I actually saw another side. I actually invested in flex spaces. So flex spaces, by the way, just for you guys who don't know what they are basically offices and warehouses in one spot. So basically what you have is you have a large warehouse and then a little tiny office in it somewhere, wherever that is, so that business operators can run their business and have an office in the same space. And that actually works out in a lot of people's benefits. Like, you have all these businesses today that are running out of office warehouses. The latest and the coolest business that I saw was actually a party planner that is really popular on social media. So she decided that she needs one of these to store all of her, I guess, backdrops, balloon settings, all of that. Or so I thought. And then she needs an office to greet clients. But then turned out that she turned her warehouse, the warehouse portion, into a venue. And I thought that was genius. Like, the warehouse was cool. It was designed well. It was designed by somebody on our team who does a great job designing warehouses. But it was designed so well that people were actually using it like as a hangout spot or as an event planning spot. And these are the types of businesses that you really want to be around. These are the types of businesses that are really not going anywhere. They're signing longer leases. These tenants have businesses to run, so they're fairly busy, working rather than complaining. That's the other thing. When COVID hit, it was really unfortunate because at that time when COVID hit, I had sold all of my multifamily in 2019 except for one apartment community. So the reason I bought this apartment community is because my tax consequence was super high, because I had sold so much stuff in such a short amount of time, and I wasn't planning on 1031ing into anything. which means I wasn't looking for a like-time exchange to defer taxes, but rather I wanted to buy one asset where I could deploy a bunch of capital and I could use a cost segregation study and depreciate as much as possible in order to offset my gains. Unfortunately, that amount wasn't enough. I still had to pay seven figures in taxes for 2021 because the math just didn't add up. But that's a story for another time. What ended up happening is since then, since 2019, I've had this one apartment community that I own, and it's fairly public. Like I talk about it all the time over my TikToks and my YouTube shorts, and we go over progress that we're making. We bought it for X amount of dollars. We're trying to sell it for Y dollars. I can tell you firsthand that now, after being in the flex space arena and being in the flex space business, that apartments are no longer appealing. Like they just don't, I feel like I had found a way to make money in real estate, and I was willing to do anything to make that money. And that's why I just kept growing in my multifamily space. But once the flex space the concept proved itself and all these buyers started jumping in, there was really no comparison. It's just so much more scalable, so much more automated, and the tenant quality and profile is just so much better because everybody's doing work, right? Once again, COVID 2020, from what I hear and from what I saw in my apartment complex, was that a lot of tenants were out of work. Yes, they were able to pay rent. We were receiving rent from subsidiaries of the government or whatever it was, but the tenants were all home. So although everybody was paying rent, these properties were not meant to have that much occupancy 24/7. So you had everybody and their family and their kids and their uncles and their aunts and everybody in lockdown in these apartments. And guess what? These apartments deteriorated. They took a significant beating during those 2 years. And the reason is just, they're not built for people to stay home that long. They deteriorate twice as fast. And I can tell you firsthand that the people who own these apartments, okay, although they were getting paid, it was still a struggle to keep everything maintained because of, issues, obviously, the things the time in 2020. And there were just so many things going on. And these apartments were deteriorating faster than they were meant to be. It was not a fun experience for anybody who owned apartments. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I own one apartment complex, so I know exactly that feeling where you have tenants in your apartment every single day, and all they can do literally is just complain because they have nothing else to do. They're just bored. And why is this tree 2 inches more than it's supposed to be? Why are you not cleaning or sweeping the corridors every day? Or what, just things that literally we never had to worry about. Now we have to worry about because tenants are home, and when they're home, they see everything and they observe everything, and that's just not the way these apartments were meant to run. So that was another thing that I think got me burnt. Just owning one final apartment community, by the way, that I still own and that I'm selling, just caused me to completely get turned off from that business. And now, since we've done FlexSpace, we've been scaling it. We're teaching people. We have an academy. We have a mastermind, and all our members are learning to build these because I feel like, and the whole reason that I built this was because I feel like people really need to see how easy it is to get into real estate and how easy it is to not manage that many tenants that could cause that many issues. I mean, think about it. I have friends today that are telling me, Hamza, we watch you and we've seen what you've done in flex spaces and we own all these houses and it's just a headache. We don't want to deal with it anymore. And I think that's for good reason. I don't think that every person was meant to be a hands-on landlord. In fact, I know a lot of people that will not answer tenants' calls if the tenants are a little aggressive, just because they're either introverted or this is not what they thought they signed up for. Now, of course, with that being said, the management on flex spaces, there is management, but now you're talking to businesses, right? And businesses are more professional. They know how to communicate, and they want to keep their business in there. They want to build it just because we build like class A product versus whatever we were doing in the past. In the past, we were fixing, buying undervalued deals, trying to fix them. That was another thing, by the way, that I didn't talk about. When you buy undervalued deals, you really don't know what you're getting into. Like, you can do as much due diligence and as much as you would like, and it still wouldn't be enough. So, if you are looking, and if you are listening to me, and I don't know if you can hear the pain in my voice or not, because really I didn't want to make this video. I'm just making it because my team has told me to make it, because I talk about this, a lot. And if you have considered, okay, and just considered entering the real estate space, buying a house or buying an apartment complex or buying a duplex or a triplex or whatever it is that you're looking at that anybody on the internet is telling you to buy, just do me this one favor, okay? Look at flex spaces. Just go out there, do some research, go look at what flex spaces have to offer, find out what they are, find out how they performed even during the past 2 years. Learn more about them, educate yourself on how easy they are to run and how automated they are. And I think you will find great value in that. This one piece of advice, most people on my channel are real estate investors, and I know a lot of people are looking to get started. And if you are truly looking to get started, just one request. I have nothing to sell you in this video. I get nothing out of it. I will not make money talking to you about this, becoming, being vulnerable, doing all these things. This is not the intent. The intent here is to just open your eyes and tell you that there is a better alternative, okay? And an easier alternative into becoming a landlord. And with that, just gonna thank you guys and tell you guys that I'm back. I'm gonna try to make more long form content when I see relevant, but this is my first piece, and I hope it resonates with you guys. And this is deeply coming from deep within. I'm trying to share all this knowledge and information with you guys.